So here I am again on another locksmith job in Kingston. Beautiful, beautiful area. So I tried to come up with some more questions, not just about motherhood, but expanding the mind a little bit more, not just about motherhood and just about life. So here's my next question. What if survival wasn't the goal, but awakening was? Super valid question. Because for me, I can't speak about anybody else. For me, the survival mode was the vehicle for me to have not just an awakening, but several awakenings through the progress of time. If I had to look back, I would say everything in my life, including the struggles, including the sacrifices, led to my awakenings. I'm a firm believer that some of us, if not all of us, volunteered to come here for whatever lessons we needed to learn or for whatever expansion was needed in life or universally. And my struggles and my survival was, for me, most of it, the platform was how I went from having nothing mentally, physically, spiritually, to using that as a platform to create something, create anything. So being a single mom with 11 children, you have no money and no food. What do? You have to create something. Being a single mom to 11 children with no money, how do I clothe them? How do I not create, process responsibilities or responsibility into a path of intuition, mindfulness, strength, because at any given moment, I had plenty of opportunities to roll up and, roll over in a corner somewhere and just become incapable. So I firmly do believe that this soul survival mode, the survival process, the survival lifestyle is not supposed to be one that is stagnant. You don't stay there. That it is a means to grow, a means to learn, a means to discover, a means to awaken. But then the next question is, what is awakening? For me, what awakened was self-confidence, knowing that I could handle anything at any given time. It got to the point where I was in such survival mode 24/7 that anytime something came across my path that was challenging or seemingly insurmountable or seemingly being incapable, I got to the point where I would just be, I might have the panic for the first 60 seconds. Then I'd relax and think, okay, how do I handle this? How do I make this shit turn into manure so I can grow nice things? And that became my platform for awakening, and everything that was thrown at me, everything that came across my path, truthfully was all about survival. And I can't get mad at anybody. I can't blame anybody, because these were things that happened based on the choices that I made in this life and even before this life. I also have to think about what was the definition of survival in my life? How did survival manifest itself, or the whole concept of having to survive something? And when I really thought about it, it had everything to do with time, because when I was in survival mode, it was minute to minute, second to second, hour to hour, day to day, you know? How do I figure out where the next meal comes from? How do I figure out how to help any one of my children with the next homework assignment? How do I figure out what to do next in the minute, in the second, in the hour? So survival and the survival mentality and survival mode was definitely represented itself and manifested in my life as time. Because I notice now, not being in survival mode, time is expanded. I no longer have to think second to second. I no longer have to think hour to hour or day to day. You know, now time is manifested as creation. And it takes me back to the concept of I am that I am, which actually is a mistransliteration in Hebrew. It's written in the first person future tense. It literally means I will be that which I will be. So life now manifests for me in that literal translation. I will be that which I will be, but what will I be? What will I create next? Sometimes on a daily basis, sometimes on a monthly basis. You know, I will be that which I will be in a year from now, in a month from now. So survival and time, or the concept of time for me in my life, looking back, definitely went hand in hand. And as I started learning about law of attraction, the more I concentrated on law of attraction and manifestation, it slowly but surely took me out of the survival mode. And then along the way, I learned that law of attraction goes hand in hand with the law of allowance, meaning you allow things to be. You allow people to be. Everybody has, and everything has its own path, has its own journey. And in my journey, I wasn't really in a position, unless I allowed myself, to determine or judge what somebody else needs to do or should do, or, you know, I learned to focus on my path and how my path could positively affect me, as well as whoever was in my personal space, as well as rippling outwards into the universe. So survival and time, or the concept of time, went hand in hand, to where, like I said, time now for me is more expansive. It's more expanded. I no longer have to think second to second. And so I think, if I really am honest with myself, the concept of turning the survival mode or survival mentality into an awakening or into awakenings, I had to change my perspective, unconsciously or consciously, on the concept of time. And so that, to me, looking back, is very unique, because who would have thought? My awakenings felt like, you know how you put a key into a lock and it's not working and you jiggle it and finally there's a click and you turn it and it can open? That's what the initial physical manifestation of any one of my awakenings felt like. And then it would move into like a veil, a very thin veil had been lifted off of my mind or away from my eyes. It's like the difference between looking through a screen at what's on the other side of the screen and opening up the window or the door where there's no longer a screen. That's what the veils felt like. And my awakenings manifested themselves as time the concept or the process of time changed. Also, sometimes we tend to think that survival and suffering, if they're not one and the same, then they go hand in hand. And I learned along the way that you only suffer as long as it takes for you to realize you don't have to suffer. And I think the whole concept of suffering goes hand in hand with conventional religion, like the long-suffering servant and things like that. You know, not to speak against religion, but we weren't brought, I firmly believe we weren't brought here to suffer. And being in survival mode, especially when it's long-lasting or enduring, is suffering. Like, having to live second to second, minute to minute, day to day, that's the epitome of suffering. At what point does it become blissful or effortless? And I came up with a meme or a saying that I say all the time, or a mantra: my life is effortlessly blissful and blissfully effortless. And another thing that I noticed was survival had become my identity, and I no longer wanted that identity. I wanted it to become a phase, so that I could phase out of that identity. I could phase out of the survival mode and phase into the living and being mode. And also awakening, or my awakenings, they weren't always easy or light, full of light and sunshine and peaches. In the tarot deck, there's a card called the Tower. And the Tower is when everything falls apart and everything is seemingly horrible, but the Tower falls apart in order to be able to create something new. And so not a lot, but enough of my awakenings through this process were tower moments, where everything felt like it was falling apart. It was being destroyed. It felt heavy. It felt bad. But in the end, it happened for me, or for life, or for the universe, or for the Creator to place myself in a position to where the old is gone, here's the new. You know, it's like going through a closet. You get rid of all the old clothes and stuff that you don't wear, stuff that's old, so that you can make place for the new. And a lot of times, being in survival mode, it got to a point where it was so ongoing and so long-lasting and had become such a part of my identity that I felt empty. Like, being the strong one was empty. Being in survival mode was empty, you know, even though on a very superficial level, yeah, I'm strong, I can handle this, so on and so forth, but on a soul level, it felt empty. Like, why am I here? Like, was I born and came to earth just so that I could grow up, get a job, raise kids, feel like shit, and then die? Like, that never made sense to me, even as a child. You know, why am I here? Just so I could grow up and die? That didn't make sense to me. So this was also a motivating factor for me to want to change, transform, recreate my identity. Because like I said, survival had become my identity. You know, survival is all about how do I endure. Not always about recreating myself. It was about who I am. Who am I under all of this? Who am I under on the inside from a soul level that has nothing to do with survival, that has nothing to do with how do I put food on the table, that has nothing to do with trying to make it for day to day? Who am I beyond survival, beyond enduring, beyond suffering. And that's what I sought. And that was very much a part of my awakening and the awakenings. And now time has a totally different meaning for me, because I'm no longer conscious of time in increments. I'm now conscious of time from a life standpoint, from being able to rise above my life timeline and look down. It's a completely different perspective. So anyway, there you have it. Thank you for listening. Until the next time.